A man was arrested for a crime he hasn't committed yet. It sounds insane, but this happened in 1973. The man was accused of committing a future crime and sentenced to prison for it. This prisoner became famous, and now everyone is talking about him again. What actually happened to him? Is he still behind bars, or is he free? Let's find out. This is Tomorrow's Prisoner, a series from the 1960s and 70s where law enforcement would arrest people for crimes that were about to happen. The show featured real-life criminals who had been arrested. They would be brought into a studio and a host would talk about their alleged crimes. We say alleged because these people hadn't committed the crimes yet. They were only suspected of committing them. The host of Tomorrow's Prisoner would explain what crime the suspect was going to commit, why they were going to do it, and when they were going to do it. Sometimes the suspects knew why they were there. Other times they were completely shocked. When the show aired, it would be like déjà vu all over again for the suspect watching from prison. They would watch themselves get arrested and then go through the whole story. The concept of the show was simple. If you can prevent a crime before it happens, then you can save lives. And if you catch the criminal, then put them in jail before they commit the crime, well, that means you have a much better chance of getting a conviction. After all, you have proof of the crime right away. The judges on the show would decide whether or not to convict the suspects based on the evidence presented. If found guilty, they would be given prison sentences. But here's the crazy part. The suspects weren't convicted of the crimes they were accused of. They were convicted of other crimes. For example, someone who was accused of kidnapping might be convicted of a lesser crime like loitering. Once the sentence was handed down, the suspect was led out of the studio in handcuffs. The show claimed that they were being taken directly to prison. In some cases, they were. In others, they were taken to a local jail until they could be transferred to a state prison. Once in prison, they would serve their time like any other inmate. Some of the prisoners from the show went on to become famous. There was even a movie made about one of the episodes. But what happened to the man who was accused of committing a future crime? Why was he arrested? And how long did he stay in prison? Lawrence Singleton Jr. was an unemployed construction worker who was arrested on May 2, 1973. He was picked up by police officers off the street in Houston, Texas. They asked him where he lived, and he told them that he was homeless. He said that he had been living out of his car for a while. The cops searched his vehicle and found a tire iron, a crowbar, and a hammer. They also found a loaded pistol and some bullets. The police took Lawrence into custody and charged him with carrying a concealed weapon and illegal possession of a firearm. These were serious charges, but they weren't the ones that would keep him locked up for so long. At the station house, Lawrence was interviewed by homicide detectives. They asked him if he knew why they really pulled him over. He said that he didn't. When he was arrested, the cops had listened in on a conversation between two men. One of the men said that he needed to borrow a car and that he was going to use it to rob a grocery store. The man who was helping him said that he had just the thing and that he knew someone who could help them get the car. That man was Lawrence. The police believed that Lawrence had planned to steal a car and use it in an armed robbery at the Tom Thumb grocery store on Westheimer Road in Houston. He had no record of armed robbery, but he did have a history of petty crimes. Lawrence was sent to court and pleaded not guilty to the charges against him. His lawyer argued that his client was innocent and that he didn't know anything about the plot to rob the grocery store. The judge saw through this and wasn't buying it. He knew that Lawrence was involved in the robbery and sentenced him to 10 years in prison. But there was a twist to this story. Lawrence was convicted of the crime he was accused of committing, which means that he really was guilty of a future crime. How can that be possible? Well, it has everything to do with how the trial was conducted. Lawrence's trial was televised. In fact, the entire episode was recorded and broadcast on a local news program called The New 77. The prosecution used the testimony of an undercover narcotics officer who infiltrated Lawrence's social circle. The cop said that Lawrence admitted to planning to rob the grocery store. The officer said that Lawrence came to him and asked him to be the getaway driver for an armed robbery. He said that Lawrence admitted that he wanted to rob the grocery store because he needed money for food and gasoline. During the trial, the undercover officer testified that Lawrence told him where he would be waiting for him after the robbery and how they would split the money. Lawrence didn't take the stand, and neither did his alibi witness. With the shaky testimony of the undercover cop, Lawrence was found guilty of first-degree felony and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Even though Lawrence was convicted of a crime he was about to commit, he didn't make it out alive. Here's why. Lawrence was ordered to pay a fine of $5,000 and to serve 10 years in prison. He couldn't pay the fine, so he went to prison without any money. While in prison, he tried to appeal his conviction, but his appeals were denied. He spent 9 years behind bars before he was paroled. On June 1982, he walked out of prison a free man, but he didn't stay free for long. On July 1982, Lawrence was back behind bars. He had violated his parole. Just a month after being released from prison, Lawrence got into a fight with a cellmate and stabbed him multiple times. He was returned to prison and served the remainder of his 10-year sentence. In 1992, Lawrence was arrested again for burglary and theft. He was charged with breaking into a neighbor's home and stealing her purse. He was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison. He was released in 2000. But the former prisoner didn't learn his lesson. In 2001, he was busted for trying to steal a car. He was charged with auto theft and sentenced to 6 months in prison. In total, Lawrence spent 27 years behind bars. He was finally released for good in 2006. After spending so much time in prison, he had a hard time adjusting to life outside. He suffered from mental health issues and was haunted by his past. On February 14, 2011, at around 10:30 p.m., Lawrence was walking down the street when he was approached by 2 men. They asked him for a cigarette, and when he said that he didn't have one, they attacked him. Lawrence was beaten with a tire iron and stabbed several times. He died at the scene from his injuries. The police never caught the men who killed Lawrence. His death remains unsolved to this day. After hearing this crazy story, we have to ask ourselves, was it right for Lawrence to be arrested and convicted for a crime he was about to commit? Some people say yes, because he was planning to commit the crime. Others say no, because he didn't commit the crime until he was in prison. What do you think? Should Lawrence have been arrested, or should he have been left alone? Let us know your thoughts. Now check out this video from another channel. You will not believe what this prisoner ate in 2023.